Remember waking up on Saturday morning and just rushing downstairs so you could stare at tables, charts, and graphs and figure out what they meant and the information they were trying to convey? Probably not, but one of these Saturdays you will be doing just that, probably really early in the morning as you take your official digital SAT. What we're here to do today is go over some graphic-based strategies so this doesn't have to be a very daunting task for you. Hello, my name is Will. I'm with Principia Tutors and Consultants, and let's dive right into it. So today we're going to go over the following topics: how to identify the graphics-based questions, how to apply these strategies, and we'll do a couple DSAT-style practice problems so you can get a feel for it. So our basic approach, first thing to note is there are two types of graphic-based questions. One is going to ask you to summarize and support the claim. The other is going to ask you to best use information from the data to complete the text. And so we're going to be incorporating strategies from text completion and supporting undermining topics. So if you haven't already watched those videos, feel free to give this one a pause and review that content. And then you can come right on back here. And remember, annotation strategies are very helpful with this. So when we're annotating, we want to apply a cutie pie strategy after we've identified the main idea, supporting details, look for transition words, and filled in the blank based on our understanding of the question. That's going to be especially useful for text completion. And so if you haven't come across a cutie pie strategy, or if you just need a refresher, we'll go over that shortly. And last but not least, once you've applied all the annotations, make sure you can eliminate your answer choices. Anything that's off topic, not supported by your graphics, refutes the main idea, or misinterprets or misrepresents the data should be immediately eliminated. All right, so what's the whole deal with cutie pies and what does it stand for? So Q, that's quotation marks that would include dialogue and question marks. So these are often showing a transition between speakers or emphasis for important pieces of information. And question marks, they can draw your attention to curiosities or even give you insight into how the author feels. D for dates, times, and dashes. Again, these are often used for emphasis, and dates and times are useful pieces of information because they provide added context. P for people, so names, places, locations, and parentheses. Again, these can be used for emphasis or to draw attention to important actors or locations. I for italics and the use of first-person pronouns like I. And so italics, again, are used for emphasis. I is helpful because it lets us know the point of view is more personal and the author may identify more closely with that subject. E for exclamation points and any other emphasis not already accounted for by italics, dashes, or quotation marks and parentheses. And finally, the S would stand for just the large category of shifts. So that could be transitions like the continuers, contradictors, cause-effect words. The tonal shift, so maybe going from positive to negative or formal to informal, and then a perspective or POV shift, which may not happen as often, but is really, really helpful to notice if your speakers change or if you're going from first or second person pronouns to third person or vice versa. Not all passages are going to feature every one of these elements. However, important pieces of information can be found at or near these elements, often including the main idea. So remember to annotate the graphic in addition to annotating the passage. Where cutie pies is really good for the passage or text, obviously the graphic doesn't have that kind of bulky information. So you're going to want to look at the legend, the title, any trends or outliers in the data. And so maybe it's all trending upward, all trending downward, so you can see a general movement there. Or maybe one piece of information is diametrically opposed to the others, or it's just completely different. These are important things to note. And also just remember to identify your units. So if your answer is giving something in millions, but you're seeing millions as the unit, and then there's 1,000 of them, you'll remember that 1,000 millions is actually a billion. So an example there. And once you identify these crucial pieces of information, you can recognize and eliminate incorrect answers more easily. It's less important to go in a specific order when it comes to annotation. What matters is that you annotate your graphic and your passage. Both of these should reinforce one another, either to complete the text or summarize and support the claim. Okay, so for these DSAT style practice questions, I'd like you to pause the video, attempt to solve it on your own, and you can unpause. I will be picking it up in a few seconds. So go ahead, pause the video, give it a shot, and we'll start up together momentarily. All right, so what we can see here, if we apply our QT Pie strategy, some important things to note are the date, April 2024. We have names here provided. Some more important things to notice are the quotes around most expensive, drawing emphasis, and so that ties into the main idea that most expensive may be a misleading label. And the other important thing to note is this transition word while. Since it's a contradictor, we know what's filling in the blank here needs to be not completely antagonistic, but a bit opposite to the friends being the highest total cost if we're thinking in total cost. So we want to make sure that our answer choice would pivot away from that friend statement. So some other things to note, if we look at the data itself and we annotate it, we notice it's in millions of dollars. Why that's important is because when we get past the 1,000 mark, we're actually into the billions. It's important to note that just to make sure that if there are incorrect units provided in the answer choices, we could just rule that out potentially. Finally, some things to note for the data itself, it does tend to trend upward for total cost, so that might be something to notice. The other important thing to note here would be the blue bar where it's showing the cost per episode. That does not necessarily trend upward. It actually changes between shows. And finally, we can say that the highest total cost and the highest cost per episode do not belong to the same show. So these are important things to note. And so, quick summary for the passage, the most expensive show can change with certain context, and data trend summary, the highest cost per episode and highest total cost belong to different shows. We've just gone over that. Now when we interrogate the answer choices, we can rule out A immediately because it's saying cost more to produce than the remaining shows combined. Why can we rule it out? If we look at this bar and we just start stacking the other bars, Game of Thrones plus Stranger Things essentially gets us to the value of Friends, so adding The Crown and the Rings of Power would far exceed the total cost of Friends, so A is just incorrect based on that. So if we look at B, this is looking like a really strong answer. Cost per episode basis would rank Rings of Power highest if we're looking at just the blue bar. So right now it's looking like the best answer choice. Before we pick it though, we should be able to rule out C and D. And so if we look at choice C, 3 most expensive shows ever produced have exceeded total cost of over $1 billion. This is true. Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, and Friends have all done that, and the data supports it. However, we're trying to fill in with information that would pivot away from Friends being the most expensive in a certain context. This in C does not provide additional context for that. It just lets us know that 3 shows have exceeded costs of $1 billion to produce. And so C being slightly off topic would rule it out. And then D, Game of Thrones and The Crown having roughly equivalent cost per episodes. Again, true based on the data. However, this doesn't pivot away from Friends being the most expensive show to produce. And so in that context, we can rule out D because it's off topic. This leaves us with B as our final and most correct answer, so we can pick it confidently. Now let's move on. All right, so for the second practice style question, just like the first one, go ahead, pause the video, attempt to solve it on your own. We'll pick up in a few seconds. Okay, so in this one, QT Pie strategy can still be useful because we see this transition word while. And so this is pointing our attention to part of the sentence introducing an idea, and then the second part is refuting it. So main idea that we're introducing is advanced degrees have become a norm in almost every high-paying industry. These findings from the Library of Congress and Newsweek are showing this might not be the same standard for the President of the United States. And so if we're describing or summarizing the data to support the claim, we want to reinforce this statement that having an advanced degree may not be as common for the U.S. President. So some other things to note here, if we're summarizing the statement and the passage, presidents having advanced degrees is uncommon. So when I'm using the term advanced degrees, it would refer to anything past an undergraduate degree in college. So a master's degree, PhD, law degree, a doctorate, medical, anything like that. And so what we see here in the data is we see PhD, master's, and law degrees are reported separately. However, if we know PhD, master's, and law degrees are all advanced degrees, we can treat them collectively as advanced degrees. And so you can stack PhD on master's and you can stack both of them on law degree. And so we'd get something between 10 and 15. So that's an important thing to note there. Other thing here is if we have never attended college and did not graduate, we can combine those as well, essentially into they don't hold any college degree. And so you may see categories reported like this, so it's good to just be able to make a note of which ones would connect. Finally, if we're looking at the data, undergraduate seems to be the outlier here because it has the most data reported for it. However, as we just went over, if we actually stack the categories that are related, so like PhD, master's, law, and never attended college and did not graduate, we'd only have 3 essential categories. And so this could actually be misleading if we think of it in terms of an outlier. So just remember, there are moments where you're going to want to apply some general knowledge to these. And so a main trend summary, only about 12 to 13 presidents have advanced degrees. And we've shown that because it's going to be between 10 and 15. And it'll be around there. And then the majority do hold an undergraduate degree. And how can I say this? So if you have an undergraduate degree, great. If you have an advanced degree, it means you had to first get an undergraduate degree. So now we can start tackling the questions directly. So choice A, roughly 1/4 of elected U.S. presidents never earned a college degree. This is actually a true statement, but the question and answer don't match up since we're trying to say the focus needs to be kept on advanced degrees. So never earning a college degree doesn't properly refute or contradict this claim. And so we want to support that presidents may not hold advanced degrees. And so saying that 1/4 of them didn't earn any kind of degree doesn't really reinforce that idea. So that gets rid of A. Looking at B, law degrees, most common advanced degrees. This is, again, true according to the data, but this would actually be more in contrast to the idea we want to reinforce. We want to reinforce that the requirement to have an advanced degree is not as fixed or ironclad for the U.S. president. So if B would refute the claim we're trying to make, we need to get rid of it. Looking at C, fewer than 15 people elected to the U.S. president earn advanced degrees. This looks really strong. We've shown that advanced degrees, if we stack them on top of one another, falls between 10 and 15. And so if it's between 10 and 15, it's less than 15. So it's looking pretty solid. But before we pick C, we want to make sure we can eliminate D. And so here, most elected to the office of the U.S. president at least have an undergraduate degree. Again, this is true. If we stack undergraduate with the advanced degrees, we're going to have the majority. And at least means you can have an undergraduate or an advanced degree. And so the reason D doesn't work as well in this context is it would only half support the claim, or it might not even support that very strongly. Because we're not saying they don't hold undergraduate degrees, we're saying the majority don't hold advanced degrees. We get rid of D, leaving us with C as the most correct option. So a quick recap of everything we've gone over. You need to mark and annotate your passages. So identify your main ideas and claims. Apply your cutie pie strategies whenever you're looking at your passage. And then when you look at the graphic, make sure you're summarizing its data trends along with those of the passage. Write your summaries. So like we did with a passage summary and a simple graphic summary, and use that to assess your answer choices. Any answer choice that doesn't complete the text logically or support the claim should be eliminated. And that's everything for now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're feeling more confident when it comes to these graphic-based questions. And if you are feeling more confident, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and check out the other videos in our DSAT playlist. Again, I'm Will with Principia Tutors and Consultants, and that's all I got.